Welcome back to crimefiction.fm, where we bring the authors of today's best books directly to you. I'm your host, Stephen Campbell, and I'm here with John W. Mefford, the author of At Bay, which was released earlier this month. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Stephen. I appreciate you having me on.
It's a pleasure. You're on the crimefiction.fm email list, and I sent out an email last Friday mentioning a desire to do some video and experiment with video, and you were the first person to raise your hand. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate your willingness to play with me here.
Certainly, it's great to be front and the first in line in something.
And I did see on your Facebook page that you have been doing some video yourself. Just talking directly to your fans and your readers and fans via Facebook. And we'll get into that in a little bit, but I thought that was very clever of you to do that. And they're well done.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's gone really well, and it's just a great way to connect with my readers individually. And I've gotten some really good feedback so far.
And there's one, I'm going to encourage people to look for it. There's one where you were having some voice problems. So you did it all with cue cards. You just held up the cards. That had to be a lot of work.
It actually was, and it came at the last second because my voice wasn't really responding that day, and it was the week of the release of At Bay. So I had to do something, and I've been wanting to do the video, so I just kind of made it up as I was going along and just feverishly wrote out a bunch of notes on my cue card. Yes.
Okay, well let's get into it by talking about At Bay. The primary character is Alexandra or Alex. The name she's I'm not going to go into the whole name thing. I'll let you do the name thing.
Okay.
But she wakes up in a hospital, doesn't know who she is, doesn't know what's going on, and great open to a thriller. So take it away. Tell us about the book.
Wow. So Alex and At Bay, I really wanted to figure out a way to introduce a character and to be able to get into what they're really made of as that character explores it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so Alex herself has this accident, has a memory loss, and while her personality, as we slowly get to know her personality, she's trying to figure it out herself. And I think the really interesting part about it is, as she's figuring things out about herself, she doesn't really like what she hears. And I think one of the things that a lot of us are kind of wondering, if we were put in a situation of if we lost everything that we knew, what would people really think about us if we went through those situations? She's trying to figure all that out while dealing with two kids that she can't predict, a husband who seems distant, and she realizes she's an FBI agent. And what does she do? She has to dive in and do something that's meaningful in her life. And she dives into her casework, of course, being escorted by her partner, Nick. And from there, it just kind of gets deeper into the mystery around how she got where she was in the hospital, what caused her accident. And that ends up connecting to some other things that are not nearly as palatable for her. And of course, as you know, the worlds end up colliding in the end, and she has to deal with a lot of things personally, professionally, and she's really tested, I think, more than she ever has in her whole life.
I really enjoyed the whole idea, the concept, the way we were inside Alex's mind as she's coming to grips with two kids that she doesn't know. She's looking at pictures of them. Like, yes, she does kind of look like me. And then the way she recognizes the bond fairly quickly on, and all of the other things that go along with essentially completely losing your memory and then slowly but surely getting it back. I felt like that was really well done. Did you do some research on that?
Well, not really. I'm a parent, and so I understand that connection that you have with kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I just have this feeling that if you, even if you lost a lot of your memory of what was going on, and she had a few little gaps that were being filled in here and there,
mm-hmm.
that bond would quickly surface, and I think it did. Of course, so you have her kids that she's trying to figure out, and then you have that nanny over there. And that
Yes.
nanny, as you know, is somebody that is ultimately the biggest thorn in her side. So she's just trying to figure out what is going on and how did I get myself in this situation? And it's a little bit of comedy mixed in there, but it's also pretty gut wrenching at times for her because as she slowly figures out what's going on in her whole life, she's trying to figure out how in the world did I do this to myself and to my family.
And we should also mention that it's not just two kids, but one of the kids is a teenage girl. That
Yes.
brings its own dynamics. And the other is, I think, a 10 or 11-year-old boy.
He's 11 years old.
Okay.
Yes. And
And so, fun stuff. This is the start of a series. As an author, this seems to be your thing, to write a series. And this, based on your website, it looks like this is your third series. Do I have that right?
it is indeed my third series, yes.
So let's sort of walk through the other two series, then we'll get back to At Bay and where you're going with this one. So what was first for you?
The very first book I wrote was Fatal Greed. And I actually wrote it under a different name, and then I took it down, rewrote it, rebranded it, because I had more of a vision about where I really wanted to take it from a series perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I had really come from a world of the corporate world where greed was pervasive, and I saw it all around me. And I was trying to figure out. I've always loved mystery thrillers for my whole life. I mean, I remember waking up as a kid on Saturday mornings to watch Charlie Chan, Scooby Doo, Sherlock Holmes. I mean, you named it, I watched it or I read it. I read every Hardy Boys book, mystery book out there 10 times over.
Uh-huh.
So I've just been, enthralled with that perspective. And then, you throw in just life experiences of dealing with people and in situations. And I just knew I had to combine something, and it was something was speaking to me inside. I've been wanting to write a book for so many years. And so out came Fatal Greed. It's a pretty gritty read. There's a lot going on in there, but so many people can connect with it just because of the subject matter, dealing with greed. And so then I wanted to figure out, how do I take that greed concept and expand it into other areas? Because a lot of people speak about the greed of money ultimately, and possessions. But then the subsequent books dealt with other obsessions and focuses that modern day society has to deal with. And so we talk about Lethal Greed deals a lot with drug trafficking and drug smuggling, and how drugs are pervasive in society, and how that interacts and how that impacts so many different sets of folks. And then the other books are about other different types of greed. And of course, I have a main character who kind of, goes through that journey through the whole process. So those are my first four books on the Greed series. Then I had the Booker series. And Booker series, I was thrilled to write about.
Mm-hmm.
Booker is a former cop turned PI, forced out of the Dallas Police Department, born and raised on the streets of Southeast Dallas, but educated, went to University of Texas, met some interesting people, and has quite a diverse set of friends. So he's got a lot of street in him, but he's very educated, very passionate about the people of the city. And a lot of it came to me. I remember one night my wife and I were down in Dallas walking through the Arts District and just seeing how things had come to life there. There's a art school down there called Booker T. Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the character had been bubbling in my mind for a while. And I just thought to myself, that's what I want my main character to be called, Booker. And it's not going to, while he does have a last name in the book, it's not Washington. I wanted it just the Booker brand to just stand proud and tall. And so then it was just figuring out how I could get some really meaty, great storylines to support Booker, and put him in some really interesting situations. He, of course, is a single father again. And I think, a lot of the themes I think in my books is that, I got some interesting situations where people are put in, suspense and thrills that would really make your skin crawl at times, but ultimately they're about how people evolve and grow and their relationships. And so kind of that journey that the character goes on, not just through the book, but through the series, is something I really focused on. And I probably focused that more in the Booker series. The Greed series just kind of happened, because I started the first book and then the next book just happened after that. And I kind of took that a book at a time. Booker was a little bit different. I created that story arc from the very beginning and kind of looked at the whole thing, with a few twists here and there. What I really don't like to do is to put myself in a box and say, I'm going to do everything I have in the paper here. I like to be able to plan it a little bit in advance, but leave some creative, thought process out there so I can change my mind as I'm going along, because things come to you as you're going along in the process. You need to have the freedom to be able to make changes.
Now, when you were developing the story arc and presumably the character arc for Booker, did you have like a multi-book arc for both the story and the character? And did you work to that plan, or was it a book at a time?
They were hand in hand.
Okay.
Yes, I had the plan to write 6 novels.
Okay.
Now, beyond that, I had a couple ideas in case I was going to continue it, and I still might, but I just knew in 2015 I wanted to publish 6 Booker novels. So I went ahead and set out the production schedule. I set out how many words I needed to write. I worked with my editing team, my proofreaders, beta readers, cover artists, everybody to align them in a schedule to where we could collectively create 6 novels that were, grab you by the throat,
Mm-hmm.
Connecting with the reader, connecting with the character, and just, very meaty. And so everybody that I work with I got a really good team of folks, and I think they're all proud as hell about what we created. And so I did the same thing here with Alex in the Alex Trout series.
And it's interesting because I read the first Alex and I really enjoyed it. So I wanted to go back and see what else you'd written. And I saw the branding on the Booker series, and it just grabbed me. And I thought that this looks like it's going to be something that's really good. So I'm going to work my way through that as well.
Great.
But one of the things I think that you do with all of your books, and it sounds like it's in conjunction with your team, is you really package everything together well. And it must be. Is it the same cover artist that's done all the covers for you?
Initially, I had different cover artists, but I basically went back and had Jaron, who's my cover artist, go back and redo all the old ones. So yes, he did Booker from the very beginning. He's doing all the Alex Trout ones. The Greed series had a different set of covers, but I had him go back and rebrand everything. So yes, he's the same one, and we work really well together. And he comes up with concepts, and he's got such a creative, visionary mind. But the great thing is he's very open-minded. I'll look at something and I'll say, I don't really see it. I don't really see where you're coming from. Have you thought about this or that? And he's just very open-minded to changing things, and we just work really well together. And I think that's one of the keys to trying to be successful is finding people who are collaborative, have passion about what they do, but still have that degree of open-mindedness that allows them to look at things from a slightly different perspective in case somebody has a different idea or a better idea.
Now, since we're on video, I can see Booker No Moss paperback book back behind you. Can you grab that and stick it in front of the camera? Because that's sort of the way all the covers look. They're not that color. They're all bright colors,
Right.
but they've all got that thrillerish edge. You know exactly what you're getting when you look at the cover of those books, which is critical for readers like me who read a ton of books.
Right. And that's one of the things we wanted to convey. I mean, because you can't just stay on the book. And I didn't want to be that obvious. Hey, this is a thriller. Pick it up and read it, please. It's all about the vibe, ultimately. And that's what Jaron and I talk about constantly is what is the vibe? Even if that, I know a lot of folks look at their covers as to be, I got to be able to capture a specific scene out of my book.
Yeah, that can get you into trouble.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
You really start trying to feel like you're directing a movie, and it's like that's not really what you're trying to go for. You're trying to go for the vibe, which is really no different than the book itself. In that, when you do get into detail, when you write a book, character development and so forth, you want somebody to come out of it. At least I do. I want to evoke emotion, and I want them to have a certain feeling. And I want them to go on this path and this journey where there's a lot of peaks and there's a lot of valleys, and they connect with that person and the main character, and they can see the perspectives of the other folks because there's the vibe, and they know that they're reading this book. This is the John Mefford book, and it's a thriller, and it's a different flavor of the Greed series or whatever, but I know what I'm reading is a thriller.
Okay, so we had the Booker series last year. How many books did you say? 6?
6 novels. Yes,
All right,
and actually there's have a novella out there as well, which is between 2 and 3.
All right, so 6.5. I think I saw that on your website. 6.5.
Yeah.
You called that. And the first Alex book came out in early January. The second one is scheduled for March 11th, I think. So are you going for the same 6-book plan for this year?
I am indeed.
So walk us through it. When did you write at Bay? When did you send it to your editor? When did you, final proofs, et cetera, et cetera? Because that's a lot of writing to get done in 12 months, plus all the other things that go along with supporting these books.
You're telling me. My wife knows that more than anybody. It's kind of ours and my kids, too. They've all been so supportive and helpful. But I think if I wasn't as organized as I was, it'd be difficult to have a life at all. But I basically started writing. I actually went back and looked at this a couple of weeks ago because as I look now, not just towards 2016, I'm actually looking towards 2017 a little bit now. I let those ideas start percolating a little bit. So I started writing at Bay back in July of last year. Okay. And that's when, I started putting the initial ideas on paper and just started writing the first draft. Now, the whole process as far as, because people say, how do you put out a different book every 2 months? they're kind of wondering that. And I say, well, I don't write a book every 2 months. I just publish a book every 2 months. And the way that I'm able to do that is because, once again, working with my great team, is that I'm between writing drafts. I mean, you can't be writing the entire time. You're writing a draft.
Mm-hmm.
You might be writing a second draft or a third draft, as the case with me, when I do my writing process. But when I send it off to my editor, what do other authors do? I don't know, but I don't sit around idly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm either editing another book, or I'm providing edit response back to my editor on the next book or the previous book in the series, or I'm concepting a future book in the series. So ultimately, the process is about 16 weeks, give or take, to create a book from start to finish.
Okay.
And that includes working with my cover artist. But the actual publication comes every 2 months. And, there's just a lot of overlap. I actually have a spreadsheet where everything is mapped out, and you can see it, all these different colors for what things mean. Green means certain thing, blue means certain thing, dark blue means another thing. All these different milestones in there about when I need to get the cover from Jaron and all this stuff going on. So it's just trying to stay organized, but this is what I think the readers want, and they're constantly asking me to crank out more books. So this is the way I think I can do it, and do it in a high quality fashion, and still run the author business, so to speak.
Yeah, and it is. People don't realize all that goes into running the author business. And even you held up the book and then you flipped it around as you were putting it back on your desk. There's all the back cover material that I bet you had to write. There's the material, the book description for Amazon that you have to write. And you have to do this for every story. So it's not just writing the book and editing the book and making the revisions to the book. Then it's writing and doing all these other things, plus doing interviews with people like me, posting on Facebook, interacting with your fans. There's a lot to it, and I can see how it would be exhausting for people that write 2 books a year. For someone that's publishing 6, that's a Herculean task.
It's a large task, and what's really, I guess, really cool about it is that, and this is why I do it, it's not exhausting to me. There are things in my life I've had to do that, yes, I could spend the same number of hours doing other work in my life versus doing author work. I could stay up till midnight, 1 a.m., and I have 2 a.m. doing the author work versus other work. My brain is completely fried doing the other work. When I might be tired when I'm finishing the author work at midnight or 1 a.m., but my brain is not fried. I feel, if anything, I just feel finally fulfilled in doing something I love, and really, the other part of it, as you probably know, Stephen, is that, in the last year now, I've been able to connect with readers like I never have. And, through email lists and Facebook and so forth, and having the videos, like you mentioned earlier, on Facebook, having that interaction with readers has meant the world to me. And the feedback I've gotten has been amazing. So that further fuels my desire to share all these stories I have churning inside. And, when I first started this journey, I kind of wondered, how many stories do I have inside of me? And right now, the bucket kind of seems limitless. There's so many stories that I can't even get to them. So I just have to be methodical, go put my notes down. Eventually, it's my little bucket list of stories I might eventually get to.
Well, this man's name is John W. Mefford. We've been talking about the first book in a new series, At Bay. We've talked about the other series. John, where can people find your books?
All the major e-retailers, Amazon, of course, all the different Amazon outlets, Apple, iBooks, of course, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo are the primary areas you can find them.
And where can people find you online?
My website is probably the best place to start, johnwmefford.com. And if that's a little bit too difficult to remember, you can find me on Facebook. Just look up John W. Mefford or John Mefford, and you eventually find my author page, and from there you can find my website.
And I will link to both of those. I will tell people that you have an incentive to sign up to your email list on your website. So why don't you talk about that for a second, and then we'll close.
Certainly. I give away what I call my starter library to folks who sign up for my email list. And when they sign up to my email list, then they have notification of all my early releases. I have cool giveaways. I share other books of other favorite authors. Anyway, so you get the starter library, which is the first book of the Greed series right now, and the first book in the Booker series, Booker Streets of Mayhem. So anyway, it's a pretty cool way to sign up and connect and start the whole process.
All right, and I can tell you that people love your books because the Amazon ratings are phenomenal, and you have a ton of them. So congratulations on all of your success. I really enjoyed At Bay. I love the idea for this series, and I'm anxious to read more and to dig into the Booker series. So thanks so much for being here today.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate it, Stephen.
All right. Bye.